Do not buy the Lost Disney movie off the dark web. My daughter is obsessed with Disney. In fact, she doesn't want to be called by her real name anymore. She insists on being named after Elsa, Queen of Ice. She has all the merchandise and all the movies on DVD. Every time Disney releases a new movie in the cinema, she insists she has to see it. Frozen, Moana, Mulan, she knows it by heart and will spoil it if you ask her. Last Christmas I was at loss on what to give her. Encanto had just come out, and not only had she watched it 3 times, she already had bought every single piece of merchandise that came with the movie. Surprise me, she said with a wink, when I begged her for gift ideas. After weeks of racking my brain, I decided to just search the internet for the perfect gift. Before long, I came across an old video borrowing site, just off the edge of the dark web. There was an old Disney DVD for sale. It was made in the old 2D animation, and not the new 3D state-of-the-art animation like the modern Disney films. It was advertised as the Lost Disney film, something they made but never released. In fact, it had no official title. The website simply said, "The Lost Disney Movie, available now." It was relatively cheap too. Only $25. With free shipping. It came just in time for Christmas. Elsa squealed in joy when she ripped open the wrapping paper. "I thought I watched every one," she shouted. "This one's special," I winked at her. Elsa insisted on watching it the moment we finished dinner, and I obliged, running it on the old TV. The movie was nothing really special. Just the same old Disney plot: a princess lives on an island her entire life, finds a handsome, shipwrecked prince, falls in love, etc. Honestly, it was the cheesiest thing I ever came across. But Elsa loved it. She wanted to watch it again, and again. "It's bedtime, darling," I said at last, when the clock struck midnight. "No," she whined, her eyes still fixated on the screen. So I yanked the plug out of the television. Elsa still hadn't moved. Her eyes were still glued to the screen. I couldn't help but peek at the screen. My heart dropped to my stomach when I realized the movie was still playing. The characters were dancing and laughing across the island. "Elsa? It's time for bed, sweetie," I called out again, shakily. This was not normal. I reminded myself to call the electrician when Christmas was over. Later, Elsa muttered without looking at me. The characters were still laughing on the screen. It was like they were laughing at me. The next morning, the movie was still on the TV. The long cord snaked across the room, the plug grinning at me. Elsa had not moved. Her jaw was slack and her eyes were red, and she was as still as a statue. "Elsa? Breakfast," I said. Elsa did not respond. I stood in between her and my television set. "Elsa? Breakfast," I nearly shouted. Elsa still said nothing. A dribble of saliva ran down from her open mouth. Her pupils were dilated, and her face was throbbing. It had only been one night, but it was as if she had not slept for many days. "Leave me alone," she gurgled sleepily. This was not normal. Nothing I did would make her stop watching the movie. Dragging her away was impossible. It was like she was glued to the spot. I tried throwing a blanket over it, but it caught fire, and crumbled to ashes on the floor with a hiss. Finally, desperately, I tried to smash the TV. But the hammer simply bounced off the glass. I swung the hammer again, but this time the hammer crumbled into smithereens at my feet. The cartoon continued to play, every word a taunting reminder of my attempts. In the end, I gave up. Nothing worked. I kept a wary eye on her as the days slipped by. Then she started changing. Her face grew as white as bone. Her skin grew translucent, until I could see the inside of her. Her eyes were pale and bloodshot, her jaw too slack. She barely responded when I called her name. And she grew more interested in the film, sliding closer and closer as the days went by. Then one day all was silent. I called Elsa's name, but she did not even grunt. Then I made the mistake of looking at the television set. There she was, frolicking happily on the island with the characters, a blur of pixels on the screen. I screamed her name and banged on the screen, but it was like she couldn't hear me. Like she was there all along. I kinda regret buying the Lost movie off the internet now, especially since I lost my daughter. Too good to be true, as the saying goes. How I wish I had heeded that warning. Especially since as I pen these words, I hear my daughter's sweet voice from the television set, inviting me to watch the movie and be with her. Frolicking on the island paradise, like the old days. Should I? TCC